Alrighty, so I'm gonna do something a little bit interesting, and that is I have paused the game between Inter Miami versus Portland Timbers. It's about 15 minutes before the beginning of that game, and I'm gonna try to look at the first four games and try to do this before the Nashville versus LAFC game. Probably that might not happen because usually it takes me about 20 or 25 minutes to look at one board with four games that is happening, but I'm gonna try my best, and we're gonna just jump straight in by talking about these games so we don't really waste too much time. And we start off with Montreal versus the Chicago Fire. So yeah, the Fire, they're are starting to kind of pick back up form when it comes to them had a bit of a struggle in the last couple of weeks, and it's kind of interesting the fact that they're starting to pick up their form, mainly because they're on the road. We have said before, this is a team that has been very good on the road, and that kind of continue in this game as well. Now, in the first half, Zikanago would puts it over from close before he puts it wide from close in the 11th minute. It was all Chicago early in this one. They had the possession. They were in control in this one. They were trying to get themselves the opener, and they do. As Zikanago on the third time asking, he would puts it in to give Chicago a 1-0 lead. So, as the old saying goes, if you don't succeed, try it again. And in the case of Zikanago, the third time is the charm of him able to put a chance away. But yeah, Montreal, they have no one to blame but themselves in terms of giving up that goal because they didn't clear their lines. Not the first time we've said that this Montreal defense being sloppy at the back and getting punished. So yeah, just like that, it was 1-0 in favor of the Fire. Kuipers then looked for another, but he hits it right to Gillier before Lud would miss wide from close range. It continued to be all Chicago up to this point. I mean, you kind of had a sense that this could maybe be an ugly scoreline if Chicago can get a second goal in this one. And not to mention, Montreal has still yet to register a shot up to this point. Kuipers would then hits it high to Gillier after a bad Montreal turnover. Brady would then deny Jaime on the other end, as that was actually the first shot for Montreal. So it took 44 minutes before Montreal started to get into this. And by the time they got into it, Chris Brady had to come up big with some save because he would then deny Carmona on the free kick. It was actually driven low at as well. Was a really good job there by the Fire in terms of that wall. It kind of got split, so Carmona finds that space that almost sneaked past Brady there. But we do head to halftime with Chicago leading 1-0 in the second half. Owusu would head to wide from close before Brady denied Owusu off a deflection. Montreal definitely been up for it for the second half, but now the question is, can they beat Chris Brady? Because right now there's always a lot of discussion when it comes to the U.S. men's national team with the goalkeeping spot. Obviously, the big question has to be is it Matt Freese or Matt Turner? But don't forget about Chris Brady. I do think that Chris Brady should get a shout in terms of being on the national team. I mean, I'm not quite sure if that's going to happen, but he's been very good this season for the Chicago Fire, and he's definitely showing it in this one, and he's doing everything that he could to try to make it onto the national team. And hear his name when they release the roster. That is actually not that far from now. I think next week is when the U.S. is gonna announce the roster that's gonna be playing in this World Cup on home soil. This edition in the third minute or the 65th minute. I'm sorry. Brady would deny Vera from close range, but then the 67th minute really kind of against the run of play because Chicago really was not at it in the second half. Hugo Kuipers would score for Zikanago and Haile Selassie to make it 2-0 in favor of the Chicago Fire, and that is the 10th consecutive game that Hugo Kuipers have scored at least a goal in the game. He became the third player to do so. He joined Landon Donovan and Joseph Martinez as the only player to do so. So what a moment that is from Hugo Kuipers, and he continued to be just an absolute menace in terms of that number 9 spot. Are you sure need Lewandowski in that spot? I mean, I've been hearing a lot of rumor the fact that Lewandowski is coming to Chicago, but it kind of does not make any sense. The fact that you already have Hugo Kuipers, and unless if Kuipers maybe is going to be sold off in the summer, which I wouldn't be surprised that might be the case because I'm pretty sure a lot of European scout is looking to get Hugo Kuipers from the Chicago Fire. I mean, it kind of didn't makes a lot of sense to have both of those guys in that number 9 position. I don't know how that's going to work out for Great Berhalter's side. Julia would then make a big double save here, denying Kuipers and Mueller there before Puso would miss wide from long range in the 83rd minute. It looks like Chicago kind of find its stride again after scoring that second goal, but most importantly, that second goal just let off the balloon for Montreal. I mean, they just lost all their momentum after that second killer goal that the Fire scored. Kuipers then went beast mode there, but he missed wide in the third minute stoppage time before Brady denied Rios on the header. But yeah, in the end, Chicago with a big 2-0 win in this one. The shots in this one, 16 shots with the 13 that the Fire has. Both teams had 6 shots on goal, 5 shots off target with a 3 that Montreal has, 5 shots on blocked with the 2 that Chicago has, and possession-wise, 56% possession compared to 44% possession the Chicago Fire has in this game. Now, moving on in terms of the next game is Columbus and the Philadelphia Union. So I already did a video earlier today talking about the firing of Henry Rustrom and how that was kind of a little bit surprising. Consider I would have thought that he would get a little bit longer leash, but apparently Columbus doesn't seem like they're going to give him too much of a leash, and especially a certain someone that is the GM right now that are really feeling the heat, especially from the fan base. I feel like this is kind of a move that he kind of had to do, knowing that he could be the next one that could be in danger of losing his job. So that being said, just 10 minutes in, things actually start off well for Columbus as Hugo Picard would score the opening goal of this one. Remember last week in action, it feels like it was bangers only weekend because, man, there was a lot of great goals last weekend. I don't know who, of course, won the goal of the week, but as I said, I wouldn't be the one that will put in terms of who, of course, will get the honorable mention or even winning the award itself because there was just so many of it. This was another example of it. Just an absolute banger there from Hugo Picard. Didn't know that he had that in his repertoire as well. But just like that, Columbus were up 1-0 in this one. So that was really the only thing we saw in the first 20 minutes. It was a kind of a slow first 20 minutes. Not a big surprise. I had a feeling this was not going to be one of those games where if you expect there's going to be goals and there's going to be crazy action, this is the wrong game you're tuning in. This seems like it's going to be one of those games where with both of these attacks been struggling lately, it's going to be a bit of a slow game. Zaswatsky then looked for another, but he missed wide on the header. The shots were still only 2-0, 30 minutes in to this one. Bender would then puts it just wide as that was the Union first shot of the game, but we do head to halftime with Columbus leading 1-0. In the second half, Schulte denied Sullivan from close before Ilowski puts it over from long range as the Union definitely start the second half better. You just kind of had a sense they have to. They have to push the issue to try to get the equalizer. Alado would then heads it over from close range, but in the 70th minute, Milan Lasky would score, and he's been scoring more goals for this Union side lately. That's got to be good news for the Union because that's kind of the reason why they bought him in the first place, and especially with the way that nobody on this team can score, you might as well get him going, and seems like he's got himself going these last couple of games. He scored here from Manello and Bender to make it 1-1 in this one, and I even know that's been coming because the Union definitely put up the pressure. Not that it usually means that it pay off of a goal as we've seen this season. That's more times or not has not been the case, but at least this time it did finally pay it off with a goal. Bender then looked for another, but he hits it right to Schulte in the 73rd minute. The momentum was definitely with the Union up to this point. They were pressing to try to get the lead. There was a huge shout for a handball for the crew not given not long after before Schulte denied Sullivan from close in the 85th minute. In the 88th minute, Herrera would puts it wide from close range, and that was a big chance too. I mean, Herrera got himself in a big spot there, and that is one that he definitely want to have back. And then on the other end, Sullivan would hit it right to Schulte on the free kick in the fourth minute stoppage time. But yeah, in the end, it ends in a 1-1 draw on this one. The shots in this one, 12 shots compared to 6 that Columbus had, 2 shots on goal compared to 5 that the Union has, 4 shots off target compared to 3 that Columbus had, 1 shot that was blocked with a 3 that the Union has, and possession-wise, 51% possession, or I'm sorry, 61% possession with a 39% possession the Union has in this one. And, this draw obviously does not help anybody. Anytime when you have two bad teams facing off against each other that desperately need a win, a draw is kind of the last thing that either of these teams wants. So, yeah, not ideal for either of these teams. And in the situation of one of those teams, they decided that, yeah, this draw is enough. The final straw has finally drawn, and Henry Rustrom, unfortunately, see his time with the Columbus Crew come to an abrupt end after this game. Now, moving on, now we get to talk about the two rivalry games, starting off with Orlando versus Atlanta. There was a lot of 1-1 draw this week. This was another one of them between Orlando and Atlanta United. And as I said, when you have two bad teams facing off against each other, I don't know if either of these teams is going to be happy that they got a draw out of this game. In the first half, Lochinitze with the game's first shot, but he missed wide. Not much chances really happened, at least in the first 15 minutes of this game. But on the first shot for Orlando, it's in the back of the net as Griffin Dorsey scored again. He's now scored a couple of time after finally getting his first with Orlando. But he scored here from Angulo and Ojeda to give Orlando a 1-0 lead. Ojeda then looked for another, but he hits it right to Hoyos before Crepeau on the other end denied Maranchuk as the flag went up here. So even if Maranchuk put it in, it wouldn't have counted. Lobjanidze would then hits it right to Crepeau, but we do head to halftime with Orlando taking a 1-0 lead. In the second half, Lobjanidze would hit it wide from close before he hits it right to Crepeau in the 50th minute. Same to that Saba has been feeling it. I mean, ever since he finally broke that drought, you can clearly see that he has more confidence in terms of going for and shooting in front of goal. Though lately, ever since his first goal, he hasn't really been able to finally get his second and get things going again for this Atlanta team. But that being said, this Atlanta team was definitely on the front foot. They were looking to tie it early on. Hoyos would deny Ojeda from close to the 52nd minute before Moranchuk would hits it right to Trepo on the free kick. Ojeda would then puts it wide from long range as now both of these teams would start to exchange some chances, trying to get the opening goal. Moranchuk would then miss wide from close in the 61st minute before Dorsey on the other end would hits it wide from close range. And really, as the time winds down, you kind of start to see that Atlanta was starting to push for that equalizer. Orlando, they were kind of started becoming going with Bro Heath mode a bit at home. They're kind of shut up shop and trying to seal a massive 3 points. Now, against Atlanta, I don't blame them for doing it because Atlanta doesn't usually have a lot of big weapons to threaten. But still, I mean, this is an Orlando team that has had issue when it comes to protect leads before. So yeah, I don't think it was a surprise that they weren't able to hold on to this 1-0 lead. Because after Moranchuk puts it wide from long range in the 83rd minute, in the 86th minute, Atlanta does get the equalizer as Jay Fortune, another guy that's been scoring lately. He's usually not a guy that score a lot of goals, but he scored again here from Edwards and Gregerson to tie the game up at one apiece for Atlanta. Moranchuk then looked for another, but he missed high in the 89th minute. The momentum definitely was with Atlanta up to this point. They were pressing hard to try to get the winner. Orlando was kind of holding on. Crepeau denied Galarza, but then it falls to Moranchuk, and he tried to redirect that one in. But as I said, Moranchuk, he has not had a lot of confidence lately. If that was a confident Moranchuk, he would have definitely buried it. But it was not a confident Moranchuk, and his redirection was way too weak. It just kind of was easy for Orlando City to deal with. But yeah, in the end, it ends in a 1-1 draw in this one, despite there was definitely some chances for both of these teams, especially for Atlanta, who put 22 shots in this one compared to 7 that Orlando City has. That's got to be the most shot that Atlanta United has put so far this season. 5 shots on goal for the 3 that Orlando has, 2 shots off target for the 7 that Atlanta has, 8 shots on block for the 2 that Orlando has, and possession-wise, 55% possession compared to 45% possession that Orlando has in this game. So, like I said, this another one of those matchups where when you have two bad teams facing off against each other, I don't think neither of these teams is going to be happy with getting a point. For Orlando, once again, not able to hold on to see out the win. That's kind of been an issue at times this season. And for Atlanta, they have definitely have one of their better attacking moment. But as we have seen before, when they do have good attacking moment, more times or not, they're not being clinical in terms of putting the ball into the back net. Though you could say maybe they'll at least be a little bit happy that they didn't drop all 3 points against their hated rival down in the south, and that they at least salvage themselves a point and rescue themselves a point late in this game. Now, moving on into the last game on this board before I go back to watch LAFC versus Nashville and watch a little bit of the conclusion between Miami and the Portland Timbers. We got the New York Derby between the Red Bulls and NYCFC, and I gotta say, this felt like it was your typical Derby kind of type where both of these teams they definitely had the chances to win this. This Hudson River Derby definitely was up for grabs, especially late in this game. In the first half, Forsberg would have a shot that was blocked off the line before Marshall Ruddy puts it wide from long range. Though early on, it didn't look like that. The Red Bulls, I thought, they were by far the better team to start this derby. They were looking to try to get the early lead. In fact, the shots were 3-0 for the Red Bulls 20 minutes in. In the 27th minute, Fernandez Markel with the first shot for NYCFC, but he hits it right to Horvath before Dos Santos hits it right to Freeze in the 30th minute. In the 32nd minute, Freeze would deny Doncor from close. So Matt Freeze, another guy that's kind of making it his cases to be the main man for the U.S. men's national team in the goalkeeping spot. In fact, as I'll talk about in the next board, Matt Turner kind of also made his case as well. So if you're Pochettino, after watching these two goalkeepers, kind of definitely be very interesting to see what kind of decision he's going to make. He's going to have to make that decision uh, relatively soon. It is going to be very interesting to see who is going to be the starting goalkeeper for this U.S. men's national team when they play against Paraguay for their opening game down in L.A. But in the 32nd minute, Freeze. Oh, I already said that. The Red Bulls, they definitely was knocking on the door, but again, can Freeze? Can they beat Freeze? Because he's definitely trying to make this game as a case that he is definitely going to be the starting goalkeeper for this U.S. men's national team heading into the World Cup. Nevis would then miss wide on the header, but then the 44th minute, Ruvakoba gets the opener in this New York derby, and it's been coming. I mean, the Red Bulls have been putting a lot of pressure against this NYCFC side. I think the Red Bulls will be very disappointed they didn't get anything out of this heading into halftime, but they do, and they do lead it heading into halftime in this New York derby 1-0 against NYCFC. Though in the second half, the script started to flip, and you just kind of had a feeling Pascal Janssen probably had some choice words with his team, realizing that this is the Hudson River Derby. The fact that we didn't show up whatsoever, it should there's no way that he didn't have some stern words to say that they got to be up for it, and they definitely were in the second half. Jones would puts it just wide from long range in the 46th minute. I thought Malachi Jones had a really good game in this one, though he was a little bit stake and he just couldn't put away his chances. Freeze would then deny Cal in the near post, but then the 52nd minute, NYCFC responds as Andres Pereira would score from Fernandez Markel to tie the game up at one apiece, and it was not great set piece defending there from the Red Bulls. I mean, it was a great ball for Fernandez Markel, but nobody was marking Andres Reyes there in the box there. That was pretty easy for him to hit that one in, and just like that, we are level in this Hudson River derby. Jones then trying to make it 2-1, but his shot was clear off the line, and then there was a bit of a concern. Well, actually, what was concerned about this is that this was clear off the line mainly because Horvat made a huge mistake here. He spilled this one here. Not the first time we've seen Horvat having some shaky moments between the stick for the New York Red Bulls, and he is very lucky that his defender bailed him out because that would not have been a great moment for even Horvat as well. A guy that used to be on the national team as well, but yeah, it's been a bit of a fall from grace for him. Though he will always remember in terms of that heroic PK save that we saw a couple of years ago in the Nations League final against Mexico. But in the 58th minute, Jones would hit it right to Horvat as NYCFC definitely has the momentum. They're trying to now press for the lead. Jones was in on goal there, but he was absolutely robbed by Horvat on a 1v1. Fernandez Markel then had a cross shot that actually hits the post and then it actually hits off of Marshall Ruddy as well. So it's one of those ones where when it hits off the post and it bounces off either a goalkeeper or defensive part, and you are basically just holding your breath that hopefully it doesn't redirect into your own net if you're the defensive team. Because as much as I know the post can be the best friend for a lot of these defenders, it could also be your worst enemy with the way that it hits off the post and it can redirect right off of a player that knows nothing about it. And in the case Marshall Ruddy, he knew nothing about this when it hits off of him once it came off the post. But I also thought that the Red Bulls, they were having a lot of trouble dealing with set pieces. That again came off of a set piece as well, and not to mention the only goal they conceded came off of a set piece. Mehmeti then had a header that brushed the post in the 78th minute before Jones would miss wide on the doorstep of goal. All of a sudden, this Hudson River Derby is up for grabs. Both of these teams exchanging chances, looking for that crucial winner and determine whether New York is red or blue in this game. Ojeda would miss wide from close before Hall would hits it right to Freeze in the 90th minute. Before in the 4-minute stoppage time, Jones did slip there, and it's unfortunate that he slipped because if he didn't slip, he would have had a good chance to win it late for NYCFC, but he puts a weak shot right to Horvat. And yeah, in the end, New York was not red or blue after this game. It was neither. Though you could say maybe it's still blue because of the way that, in the earlier meeting, the U.S. Open Cup, it was NYCFC getting that win. So it, in some way, it remains blue after this game, even if it's a 1-1 draw. Shots in this one, 15 shots committed, 11 that the Red Bulls had. 4 shots on goal for the 6 that NYCFC had. 3 shots off target with the 2 that the Red Bulls had. 4 shots that was blocked with the 5 that NYCFC had. And possession-wise, 57% possession compared to 43% possession the Red Bulls has in this game. And even though there wasn't really as much goals as we've seen in previous Hudson River Derby, I would say this is probably one of the more even Hudson River Derby that we've seen. And that's all I ask when it comes to Derby games. I love to see when things are kind of swinging back and forth as we've seen at times in this game as well. But that being said, I am now going to go back to watch the end of the Portland Timbers versus the Inter Miami game, see whether history did made at new stadium, and then of course we'll also trying to catch up in terms of watching the Nashville versus LAFC game because as I'm speaking right now, I think they're already 11 minutes into that game. All right, so I'm back after all of the game from match week number 14 is in the books, including the doubleheader that is. And one thing I've noticed in terms of this weekend, in terms of looking at these interconference matchup, this might be the first time this season that the East actually had the better advantage over the West. You know, throughout the season, I talk about the West seems like not only are the better conference this year, but they always seem to have an advantage and only come out with the victory against their Eastern Conference foe. Well, this week it's kind of the opposite, and that include this game between New England versus Minnesota, where the Rams they obviously had a tough game against Nashville in the middle of the week, lost their first game at home, but they bounced back in a big way in this one against a struggling Loon side that, yeah, safe to say the goals are starting to drive up for this Minnesota United side. Now, in the first half, a penalty was given to New England. They go to VAR to see whether or not it Boxall brought down Hugh in the box. Now, I'm going to try not to be biased, which is going to be hard because, as a Loons fan, I would definitely say that I feel like Carlos Hugh kind of pulled up the landing gear a little bit and kind of sold that a bit. But at the same time, there was definitely contact before he kind of pulled up the landing gear a little bit and went down on the ground. So yeah, penalty was given to New England. Carlos Hill, of course, on the penalty. He's the one that takes the penalty. He usually does not miss from the spot, and he doesn't here. So just like that, New England were up 1-0 in this one. Miller then looked for another, but he hits one right to counter, and once again, it's another slow start for the Loons in this game. I mean, this it's been a common theme for the Loons this season, both at home and on the road, that they have kind of always get off to a slow start to the game, and at times it has cost them in a big way. But they look like they got the response in the 17th minute when Yeboah puts it into the back net. But the problem was there was an offside on the development play, so that goal, of course, was chopped off. But just a couple of minutes later, there was a chance for Minnesota to tie the game up because this time they got themselves a penalty as Reigns brought down Markanic in the box. So here comes Minnesota, a chance to take from the penalty spot. And bear in mind, the last time when we see this kind of game where Minnesota give away a penalty relatively early in the game and then won themselves a penalty in the 26th minute, it was not a great memories. Yeboah twice missed from the spot here, so this was kind of a bit of a surprise to see Yeboah back taking the penalty. I thought it would probably be somebody else. I mean, if you messed up twice in a PK attempt, you probably don't deserve to take the next one. So yeah, Cameron knows have a pretty big gamble here in terms of trying to put in Yeboah there from the spot again after missing those two penalty, but he buries this one here. He did your typical hoppity scop kind of thing to see if he can draw the keeper to go dive the wrong way first, which I've never been a big fan of that, and I think Yeboah is probably very fortunate that this time Matt Turner did take the bait and he slots it home the other way, and just like that, the game was all tied up at one apiece in this game. Romero then looked for another, but he hits it right to Turner before Pereira puts it high from long range. Momentum was definitely with Minnesota as they were looking to take the lead. Sean Kaliwa then hits it right to Turner in the second minute of stoppage time, but we do head to halftime with the score level at one apiece. It didn't stay level for one apiece for long because after Coulier hits it wide from close range, New England retakes the lead. It's Langoni. He scored from Turgelman to give New England a 2-1 lead, and it also comes off a bad turnover from the Loons in the midfield, and them also overcommitting on the defensive end caused that goal for New England. And yeah, just like that, the Rams were up 2-1 up to this point. Turgelman then looked for another, but he puts it over before trying this, puts it wide from long range in the 62nd minute. Not much dangerous chances really created in the second half, and I feel like that always favorites the team that is leading. But again, this feels like it's very similar to what we saw in the last game when Minnesota played against Colorado, where they looked very good in the first half, creating a lot of pressure. They're probably low unlucky to be down 1-0 as long as they did, but in the second half they basically showed nothing in the game against the Rapids, and it feels like it's kind of the same thing in this one. They didn't show too many chances. Pereira would then hits one right to Turner before Turner with denied Mark Hennig, but then it falls to Shankly. He had a chance to score against his former team, but he puts that one high in the 84th minute. The Loons were starting to throw the kitchen sink. I will say that, this second half compared to the one against the Rapids, they definitely look a little bit better in the second half when it comes to creating things some chances. I mean, I know I said that earlier, but they definitely come alive a little bit more because man, that was pretty depressing to see how the team just didn't really show that pushback that I was expecting to do, especially what they did in the first half against the Rapids. They did do a little bit of it late in this one. Duggan would then heads it right to Turner from the corner, but in the end, New England does hold on. They get the 2-1 win in this one. They continue to make Gillette Stadium an absolute fortress. I mean, besides the Wednesday slip up, which it's kind of understandable because they're playing against the best team in the Eastern Conference right now, but their home form has just been absolutely amazing. And again, I know some will also say that well, it's because they've been playing some easy team at home, which yes, it is kind of the case that they have a pretty easy schedule. But hey, I mean this I feel like is kind of one of the first game when you could say that they legitimately beat a pretty good opponent in a Minnesota team that prior to this downward trend that they're going. They're actually doing pretty well in the Western Conference. Shots in this one, 14 shots for the 12 that New England has, 5 shots on goal for the 7 that Minnesota has, 3 shots off target for the 4 that New England has, 3 shots off block for the 2 that Minnesota has, and possession wise 50% for both of these teams. And like I said, the goals are starting to dry up for this Minnesota team, and this is the same problem that this team has had in the last game, where it's just that they been pretty good at times in terms of the build up and are creating the chances. They're not putting it away. How many times have I said that when you don't put away your chances, it's going to come back to haunt you in a big way? And in the case of the last couple of games, it's been that frustration. And this again goes back to where this team clearly need a finisher. This team clearly need to look in the summer and think about maybe adding another top tier attacking player. And some people might think that well, they technically have that with Dominic Fitz. Yeah, unfortunately, it seems like for whatever reason, Cam Knowles and Aaron Ramsey is putting him in the doghouse because yeah, he hasn't really got a lot of chance uh, as a resort. I don't know why that is the case, but yeah, things are not looking well for this team. It's almost like it's kind of ironic the fact that now both of my teams. Remember a couple of weeks ago they were doing very well and that both of them are on a winning streak, and I had that stretch where pretty much both of my team keep winning. Now all of a sudden both of my team can't can't win a single game because that's just how it is. It seems like both of my team are just really limping it into the World Cup break, hoping to make the necessary signings or changes to trying to get themselves back to where they were in the beginning of the season. Now, moving on, in terms of the next match, is St. Louis and DC United. So this game kind of went a little MLS after dark late in this one with some crazy drama that happened in stoppage time. Wouldn't be the only time we've seen this week where we had some crazy drama in an MLS game. But in the first half, Montono puts it wide from close range before he puts it over from long range in the 12th minute. Uh, in the 17th minute, we have Berkey denying Rollis from close range. DC actually started well in this one. They had the momentum early, trying to get the opening goal. Rebo would then have a shot that was deflected wide. In fact, the shots were 6-1 for DC early on. They were all over St. Louis in this one. No, that wouldn't last though, because in the 25th minute, Johnson would deny Betcher from close range, and then Fall would puts it wide from the corner. As now St. Louis started grow into this game and now trying to get the opener. Sambin tried to do so, but his shot was deflected wide before Fall had a shot that was also deflected wide in the 36th minute. As all of a sudden now the shots are 11-7 for St. Louis. So St. Louis had a lot of shots during that period, though a lot of those shots were block shots. That is, and as we'll see in the stats total, St. Louis had a lot of shots that was blocked in this game. It was a block party in DC in this one by that DC backline. Betcher would then head it right to Johnson in the 38th minute before Montuno missed wide from long range. But we do head to halftime with the scoreless in this one. But in the second half, just like this previous game I talked about, it didn't stay scoreless for long, and we didn't have to wait too long to see a goal in the second half. As in the 50th minute, Chris Durkin against his former team, the team that he all started from, and I believe he started with this DC team as a homegrown as well. So he scored here from Sunbin and Betcher to give St. Louis a 1-0 lead, and of course, always, because of his former team, Chris Durkin elected to not celebrate against his former team, but that also is one that, Sean Johnson, for the most part, he's been pretty good this season with DC. He's kind of carried that form that he had with TFC into this time, but there's always occasion that we see Johnson make some mistakes here, and I think here he definitely made a mistake in terms of the fact that I feel like should have done better in this moment. I mean, it wasn't really like cleanly shooken by Dirk in there. I feel like the caliber that Johnson has been shown at times this season probably should have done better and keep this one out. But nevertheless, in the 54th minute, Povaya would then look to get to 2-0, but puts it all over. We then go for a period where not much really happened, as DC, they haven't really looked the same since what we saw in the first 20 minutes, being a team that was showing that desperation going for the attack and look to try to get a goal, though that would quickly change. Peglo would then puts it over from close to the 69th minute before Wallem with fires it high from long range. Berkey would then absolutely romp Baribo on the doorstep of goal. Yeah, you usually do not see Baribo miss a chance from the doorstep of goal. And if it wasn't for Berkey, this team would have been tied at 1-1. Shroud would then hits it right to Berkey as DC now started to find that momentum again. It's almost like DC in this one. They kind of took a break in the middle of the game and then realized, yeah, we better be at it again on the attack because they're pressing hard to try to get the equalizer. St. Louis, they just kind of feel like they're in row heave mode a bit. They're just hanging on for dear life. And we talked about this before. When you're the road team and you try to do that, it usually doesn't end up well because after Montonu would hits it wide from close range in the 90th minute, Paglo would ties the game up, and it was an absolute bang there from Paglo to tie the game up, but one that I think everybody saw coming. I mean, St. Louis, they were just holding on for dear life. St. Louis have also had issues at times in terms of holding on leads this season as well. So I think that should be to no one's surprise, and I don't think St. Louis fans are surprised the fact that with all the pressure that they've been under, it was a matter of time before DC would get the equalizer, and that's exactly what happened. And also knowing that DC has shown in the past that they are definitely a team that showed that resilience and able to score late goals as well. They did it again here with a tying goal. And then we had Conrad Wallem get a second yellow card off the game. So DC were up a man for the last couple of minutes. Remember, there's 8 minutes of stoppage time in this, so they still have a chance to maybe get something out of it, taking advantage with a man up. And look like they got it in the 6 minute stoppage time when Montunu put the ball into the back of the net. But the problem was they go to VAR to see whether or not if there was a potential foul on the development of play, and there was. So the goal, of course, was chopped off. It's still 1-1 up to this point. Cervania trying to make it 2-1, but he hits the side netting. But despite the late pressure that DC tried to put, they weren't able to get the 3 points. As it ends in a 1-1 draw, St. Louis, in some way, I know they'll be very frustrated that they gave away the lead in this one, but it could have been a lot worse. I mean, DC was really feeling it late in this one. But the shots in this one, 15 shots with the 17 that St. Louis had, 3 shots on goal for the 5 that DC had, 7 shots off target with the 3 that St. Louis had, 2 shots that was blocked for the 11 that St. Louis had. Told you it was a block party for this DC back line. And possession-wise, 54% possession compared to 46% possession that DC had in this game. Now, moving on into the next game, Charlotte and Toronto, and I gotta say, for Charlotte, they desperately needed this one. I mean, it's been an absolute free fall, very similar to what we saw last season, where it was around this time of the period where they gone through that free fall that took them from being at the top of the Eastern Conference to drop all the way down below the red line. But yeah, they got a big win in this one, albeit it wasn't the most convincing win, even if you look at what the score line is, because TFC had some chances in this one to get themselves a point this game. No, early on, Coelho would put it wide from long range before Vargas puts it wide from long range in the 7th minute. Gilman would then hit it right to Kalina before Vargas missed wide from close range in the 17th minute. Both of these teams definitely exchanging some chances. It was a pretty even start to this game. Question is, who can get that crucial opener? The answer is Charlotte FC, as in the 19th minute, Wilfred Zaha. I'm pretty sure he probably had a chip to play on his shoulder. He probably was not happy the fact that he was left off of the Ivory Coast World Cup squad. So yeah, he scored here from Vargas and Pepiel to give Charlotte a 1-0 lead. That lead only lasted 3 minutes because on the other end, Etienne Jr. would score an absolute golazo from Osorio. And remember how I said that, no, it seems like in the middle of the week we didn't see a lot of bangers kind of go. Feels like we're back to that point because man, oh man, there was once again a lot of bangers that the score. Feels like these last 2 weeks we're going back to the classic MLS way of just. It feels like every single game there's at least one banger of a goal and one absolute rocket of goal that goes into the back net. That just kind of shows you why I really loving this league, because for all those naysayers talk about MLS being a wash league for wash player, I don't think you usually see bangers kind of go like that every single week, even in some of the top five leagues. I feel like we see more in MLS than I think I've ever seen, at least in some of the top five league that I watched before. But anyway, in the 27th minute, it looked like TFC got the lead as Jackson Gilman making his debut. It looked like he got his dream debut of putting the ball into the back net to give TFC a 2-1 lead. However, they go to VAR to see whether or not if there was a foul in the development of play, especially for the delivery of the free kick, and there was. Although I don't know about that. I thought that was kind of soft, and it's a shame too to ruin a guy that make his debut and looked like he got his dream debut of scoring a goal and give TFC the lead to take it off because of that foul. I don't know about it, but anyway, it remains tied up at one apiece, and Charlotte would take it because just a couple of minutes after TFC felt that they got the lead, Charlotte would get the lead back as Daniel Schleck would score from Vargas to make it 2-1 in favor of Charlotte. And I'm pretty sure Schleck saw what Etienne Jr. said and said, I can do one better. He scored another banger of a goal, but again, there's not enough closing down for TFC in that play. You would have assumed that after they saw how Charlotte didn't do a good job in terms of closing down Etienne's banger of a shot, you would have thought that they probably would do the same thing with David Schleck, but nope. Apparently that's not the case, and yeah, TFC they paid the price for not doing so, and now they're down 2-1 again in this one. Zaha then looked for another, but he was denied by Gavron. Charlotte definitely was pushing for another. They had the momentum up to this point. Zaha would then puts it wide from close in the 43rd minute for Vargas. Looked like he made it 3-1 in favor of Charlotte, but this time it's Charlotte the one that unfortunately had a goal that was disallowed. This time it was offside. It was a little bit close, but I think it was just a bit offside that Corvi Vargas tripped himself in. Gavron would then deny Vargas from close to the 6 minute of stoppage time, but we do head to halftime. Despite the late pressure that Charlotte put, they still only led by one up to this point, and that would be huge because TFC started to respond in the second half. Emilio would hit it right to Kalina in the 50th minute. I thought Toronto was on the front foot, looking like the better side to try to get themselves the equalizer. Though, as I said that, Gavron would deny Schlegg in the near post, and then speaking of the post, it would deny Franklin from close in the 64th minute. Though doing that play, Franklin felt like he was pushed off by a Charlotte defender, but apparently VAR and the ref didn't see it that way. No penalty was awarded. Henry would then miss wide from close to the 71st minute as Toronto continued to push to try to get the equalizer. Charlotte was on the ropes, and this is the thing about a team that is in this winless run. When you're on a winless run like this, there's always that doubt. The fact that, oh boy, here we go. Are we going to blow it late in this one? Zaha would then miss wide from close in the 80th minute before Emilio puts it wide from long range. Zaha then puts it high from close range in the 81st minute. But then a penalty was given to Charlotte. Morrison Ajiman was brought down in the box here from Osorio. Yeah, for how experienced Jonathan Osorio has been, you usually do not see him make that kind of mistake. But that gifted Charlotte a chance to finish this game from the spot. So here comes Pepe out, a chance to finish this game up and finally end the winless run for Charlotte. And he does exactly that. It's a 3-1 lead up to this point. Franklin did look to respond, but he was denied by Kalina. But in the end, Charlotte, this is exactly what they needed. They needed this badly of them finally end this 5-game winless run, finally getting themselves back to winning ways at Bank of America Stadium with a 3-1 win. The shots in this one, 17 shots for the 13 that Toronto has, 4 shots on goal for the 5 that Charlotte has, 6 shots off target for the 4 that TFC had, 4 shots that was blocked for the 5 that Charlotte has, and possession-wise, 56% possession compared to 44% possession that Charlotte has in this game. And like I said, it wasn't the most convincing win by Charlotte, but you take it. I mean, when you're on a bad winless run like Charlotte has been, they would take it any way they can to end the winless run and get themselves back to the W column, which is exactly what they did. But for TFC, I don't think it was a bad game for TFC. them to kick off this long road stretch to play like this, I don't think there should be too much of shame about that. Though I say that, but we talked about before of them not getting enough points at home. Yeah, even when you play well like this, when you don't put away your chances, I feel like this is another example of what happened when you don't put away your chances. Yeah, this can happen to you more times than not, especially when you're the road team. And then last but not least, to finish up the review of this match week, at least part one, that is, we're gonna look at Austin versus Sporting KC. So imagine you tell a Sporting KC fan that after that 6-0 beatdown that they suffer against the Portland Timbers, where that was pretty much the lowest point that this team has got this season, and maybe even in their franchise history, that they would win back-to-back games on the road after that. No Sporting KC fans would believe that is going to be the case. But yet, here we are. After the 6-0 thing beat down that they suffer. I mentioned before many times where in the beginning of the season I talked about Sporting KC showing the effort, and it feels like that feels more of me just kind of sugarcoating how bad things are gone for Sporting KC rather than actually kind of saying that they're actually showing the effort. But now it feels like that's kind of the case at least for this week. I mean, after suffering such a historic embarrassment like what Sporting KC did against the Portland Timbers, I don't think anybody would have been surprised that they would just completely fold in these next two games. But as I said, the effort will always be shown with this team, and the effort has definitely been there in these last two games, especially this one. I thought this one it was even more impressive because not just the way that they come back from a 1-0 deficit, they were the better team in this one. I mean, if it wasn't for Brad Stuver, they probably would have won this one easily against Austin FC. Early on, Stuver would deny Harris from close as the shots were 3-1 for Sporting early in this one, and they were looking good to begin this game two. Kambimba would then miss wide on the header before he hits it right to Stuver in the 32nd minute. The shots were 6-1 for Sporting KC. You would have not guessed it that this was a Sporting KC side that lost 6-0 just a couple weeks ago. In fact, it feels like both teams kind of reversed where it looks like Austin was the one that is looking like Sporting KC because man oh man, what is going on with Los Verdes? Again, and I will mention this again. Where remember how I said that if Austin does lose to Sporting KC after suffering that embarrassment that they had in the middle of the week, that their fan base would just go into a meltdown mode. Yeah, I think their fan base is in a meltdown mode after they're literally not only losing to the worst team in the league, but to just getting absolutely outplayed in this game like that. I mean, that's kind of unforgivable. Stuver would then deny Calhera on the free kick, but then Bassan had a chance to bury it, but he couldn't quite do so. But then the first man of stoppage time just completely against the run of play. Dessler would score from Biru and Wolf to give Austin a 1-0 lead, completely against the run of play. And usually when you see this, you're thinking, oh, that feels like it's a typical Sporting KC moment, isn't it? With a team that is as bad as they are this season, they just are not allowed to have anything nice of, even when they're looking good against their opposition. Somehow they find themselves down 1-0. And like I said, they could feel sorry for themselves. It feels like they could have easily just fallen this one. But they didn't. As we head into the second half with Austin leading 1-0, Sporting continued to push to try to get the equalizer. Stuber would deny Harris from close in the 50th minute. Like I said, Sporting showing some good effort again. They're not creating. I mean, I'm pretty sure every Sporting KC fan thought that they'll probably crater after giving up that opener, but they didn't. They are showing the effort, showing the fight to try to tie the game up. Stuver would or actually Suleimanov would miss wide from close range. I'm a little ahead of myself here. Ozuni would then hits it right to Cleveland before Joveljic would hit it right to Stuver in the 69th minute. And during that play, Austin basically turned the ball over at least 4 times on that sequence. I mean, that is absolutely inexcusable to turn the ball over that many times. And they're very lucky that they're playing against Sporting KC and that them seems like up to this point was just completely snake bait in front of goal because more times than not, when you turn the ball over that many times in the same sequence and can't get out of your own half, yeah, you're gonna get punished more times or not. Harris then tried to stab one in with his outstretched leg, but he hits it right to Suverd, and then he denied Sulemana from close in the 73rd minute. I mean, this is a game where Sporting KC was a culmination of once again having a lot of bad luck as the season has gone for them, and just Stuver once again stand on his heads. I mean, if it wasn't for Stuver, this probably could have been easily 3 or 4-1 in favor of Sporting KC. Cleveland would then deny Vasquez from closing the 77th minute, but then you remember, as good as Stuver is when it comes to his heroic, the last 10 minutes or the last 15 minutes. What is one of the biggest problem, if not the biggest problem, of why Austin has been so inconsistent this season and have suffered these embarrassing losses? They cannot close out games. This season has leaked. This season, this team has leaked so many goals late in the game, and you could guess what happened in this one. They hit the self-destruction button again. It started in the 79th minute with Mono Garcia scoring from Sulamanov to tie the game up at one apiece. Harris then tried to make it 2-1. He actually went beast mode there and even set down Stewart. I think he waited a little too long to trying to hit this one in, but it's the side netting. It didn't matter though, because just 1 minute later, Stephen Afrifa, a forgotten man for the Sporting KC side. A lot of people don't realize that he still played for this team, and he's a guy that hasn't scored in quite some while, but he finally scored here to break his goal drought with an absolute banger and a half on the curler to give Sporting KC a 2-1 lead. And as much as I'm pretty sure Sporting KC fans are probably shocked the fact that they're doing this, I don't think there should be too much surprise. I mean, this Austin side, when it comes to the last 15 minutes, they just absolutely crater every single game. It's quite insane to see how this has happened. It feels like every single year we always see at least one team does that, and Austin is kind of that team this season. They just simply cannot find a way to finish game up without giving up goals, and in this case, giving up a lead that, to be fair, I think judging by how the game has went, nobody is kind of surprised the fact that Sporting KC well deserve to get the lead up to this point. Uzuni did look to answer, but he missed wide in the 88th minute. Pereira would then puts it over from long range as Austin was pushing late to try to avoid the ultimate embarrassment to lose against Sporting KC at home, but they can't do so because in the end, Sporting KC well deserved to win this one. I would say this performance was even more impressive than the Galaxy performance because they dominated against Austin. Austin really had a lot of chances in this one, and the stats tells it too. 21 shots compared to 7 that Austin had. I mean, when you watch this game, it looked like as I said, it doesn't seem like Sporting KC is the one that is struggling. It feels like it's Austin the one that looks like Sporting KC this season of them struggling mightily every single week. 9 shots on goal for the 3 that Austin had. 3 shots off target for the 5 that Sporting KC had. 7 shots was blocked with 1 that Austin had in possession wise. 51% possession compared to 49% possession that Austin has in this one. And with the recent firing of Henrik Rustrom with the Columbus Crew, there's always a lot of speculation now that whenever a head coach is being fired, who is going to be the next one that could be in serious jeopardy. You got to put Nico Esteves name in that hat. I mean, right now I think a lot of Austin fans really want Nico Esteves to be gone. I mean, I'm not surprised because I don't think this hiring was a popular hiring in the first place. It was kind of a weird hiring in the first place, and now we're seeing it happen again, where Austin fans they're getting fed up in terms of these kind of performance. It's quite crazy to see how just a couple of weeks ago it looked like this team had hope with them winning back-to-back home games, and maybe things are starting to the ship or have been able to ride in a direction, and now they came back from those mini winning streak by getting absolutely embarrassed against a team that haven't won a game in 10 games, and then lose to a team that is literally the worst team in the league and looks like a team that is gunning for the wooden spoon this year at home. I mean, this has just been a disastrous last 2 games for this Austin side, and yet, despite all that, remember how Minnesota drew against this team as well. I mean, they're probably very lucky. The fact that last weekend when they played against Minnesota on Sunday Night Soccer, if Ramirez didn't get rescue themselves an equalizing goal against Minnesota, this would have been an all-time disastrous week. This might be the one of the worst week I have ever seen a team endure in a 3 games in 7 day spell as we have seen in this one. I mean, there's a lot of soul searching that's got to be done with this Austin team, and like I said, with the recent firing of a head coach, I'm pretty sure a lot of these head coaches that are kind of almost on the edge right now, they're feeling the heat, and I think Nico Estevez is feeling the heat as well. Things have just not gone well whatsoever for this Austin team. But there you have it. That is pretty much it for the review of all of these games, at least part one that is in terms of this match week. Tomorrow, of course, we'll look at the last 7 games, including the 2 Sunday games, and we'll definitely talk about some crazy games that happened in the West Coast as well, because there were definitely some MLS After Dark kind stuff in these late West Coast games, that is. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.